Hey guys, it's Crossroads here. We're doing a live. This is my second solo live, so very excited to do this. Wanted to get into some PayPal news. There's been a lot over a month. Probably not enough to do a weekly show, but certainly enough, I would say, to do a monthly show. Almost too much. So we're going to take some of the highlights. There was a lot. Let me make sure that I'm on Do Not Disturb there. And yeah, if you guys have questions on PayPal or anything, just put it in the comments. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, by the way. And yeah, probably one question that I'm seeing a lot of people ask too before we jump into all the monthly news is: Am I still buying? Am I still holding PayPal? Have I sold any? I haven't not sold anything other than covered calls because you know me, that's what I do. But I bought, I think 3 weeks ago, maybe 2.5 weeks ago, some leaps for $90 strike, December 2026. So not quite as far out as I can go, but $90 strike. So it's close to in the money, just slightly out of the money right now. And yeah, I'm happy to hold those. Haven't sold any shares or anything like that. I'm going to keep buying and adding. And I think this is a great long term play. I really still think that in the next 5 years, we're going to see new all time highs. But let's take a look at some of the news. So let me pull this up here. So starting off, like the biggest thing is Black Friday, Cyber Monday. They call it the Cyber Five. These are the most important days in e-commerce, the most important days of the year for PayPal as well. And so how did they do? Well, PayPal Business launched this as well, and it has some different metrics. And so Cyber Week 2024, they mentioned the results. A lot of merchants had their best days. As a reminder, they have over 35 million merchants. This number was published incorrectly at first. The 111,000 businesses made their first sell during Cyber Week using PayPal. Initially, it was like 900,000. I don't know where they got that number, but I was like, oh man, they added 1 million merchants in a week. They didn't, but they added 100,000, a little over 100,000, which is great. A lot of all-time high type stuff, peak shopping hours, merchant categories. But the biggest thing is this right here: $7 billion of payments processed, and that's just on Cyber Monday. 81,000 payments processed per second. That's right up there with Stripe. And a lot of these are SMB transactions. So Alex Chris, of course, comes over, and he is from a small and mid-sized business background with Intuit. And so that's really his bread and butter. I know that he loves seeing this. He talks about small and mid-sized businesses as well. And they're really talking about conversion and what they offer as well. So, but on that 7 billion note, the really interesting thing is, so e-commerce was predicted to go up by 5.6% this Cyber 5. You know what it did? 14.6% up. And that's not for PayPal, that's e-commerce in general. PayPal, as a reminder, does about a quarter of the globe's e-commerce is through PayPal or Braintree or Venmo. And so going up by 14.6% is really, really good. And another couple of things with this. Let me throw this one up here. So those were the numbers that came out. And PayPal, of course, went up. It fell back a little bit, but it went back up again. And so Alex Chris posted, thankfully, last time. This time, this is Alex Chris's numbers, but last year, let me pull these up here. This is from 2023. They had a really good Cyber 5 as well. And the biggest thing is they mentioned Cyber Monday was at 5.8 billion in total payment volume, and of course 87 million transactions. So they went from 5.8 billion to 7 billion on the same day, like the same comp and everything. So it's accelerated by quite a bit. PayPal did. As a result, let's see, I had the calculations here: 19% increase year over year. Now, what's really interesting about that is that PayPal is intentionally lowering volume on Braintree with some of their customers just because they're offering it at a rate that was just ridiculously low. And so to offset and get a little bit higher margins on Braintree, they said, hey, how about you take a little bit less volume from, you do a little bit less volume with us. We'll raise our margin rates just a little bit so that we are making a little bit more on that end too. That didn't stop the volume. So we don't know the full week. We don't know the full numbers. Things look really good. And one more thing, I see some comments here. Hi, Lisa, Chocolate Cake, Nala, thanks for coming. Sageg, Jack, Daniel, and I don't know how to pronounce that name. Silam Bas Barasan. Appreciate you guys. Russo, see you too as well. One more little bit of news from Cyber 5, and there's a lot of news that we're going to go through tonight. This is something that Alex Chris mentioned as well, and I kept checking through the week. PayPal was number one in the free finance apps for a lot of the time in those from Thursday all the way through Monday. It did vary. Sometimes Credit Karma would be number one. I think once I saw Coinbase at number one, but PayPal, normally is sitting about number four. And so that was really good news as well. There's a lot of people downloading it. And I think that in quarter four, we're going to see probably heavier volumes than expected as far as, just because of this Cyber Monday thing. And e-commerce, retail just looks really, really good right now, really strong. And of course, people are downloading the app. So we're going to see more active users, both from merchants and also consumers. So here's a question. Is Shopify or ShopPay too much of a competition to PayPal? I don't think so. This is one thing that Shopify, so to backtrack, we're going to talk a little bit about Fastlane tonight in the next set of comments as far as like the Miller UBS conference. But a lot of merchants are trying to develop Fastlane, or not Fastlane, but a guest checkout system. And so one of those things that PayPal offers is, of course, Fastlane, probably best in class. The numbers at least indicate it's best in class. We'll see how it is over a larger ecosystem, but it actually increases checkout conversion. So the time when somebody puts something in the cart and actually checks out and completes that, usually that's about 45%, maybe 50% of merchants are really, really good. For PayPal, it's like 75 to 80%, which is phenomenal. Shop Pay and Shop it's one of the things that Shopify is doing to help accelerate guest checkout, but also to be able to offer a different payment system that gives them higher margins as well for many of their merchants. There's a few other things that they do as well. It's very good for the Shopify ecosystem. Shopify has made comments in the past about taking it off of Shopify and allowing other merchants to use it. I don't know that they'll do that. And even if they do, I don't think that they offer nearly the same amount of benefits as those Shopify users. So I would say no. Now, the other interesting thing with Shopify is they had a phenomenal Cyber 5. And you know who is a new partner with Shopify? PayPal. In the past, Shopify has been content to use a lot of their volume with Stripe primarily as far as a payment processor, some also with Adyen, and pretty much none with Braintree. And all of a sudden, any PayPal transactions that were done on Shopify are actually processed through PayPal now. So that's really good news for PayPal. I think they're going to have a good quarter four. We'll have to see. Let me hide that. All right. Today's PayPal trading volume was the lowest for a full day trading since October 2021, and this is also presuming buybacks are ongoing. Do you think the amount of traders willing to sell is dwindling? Yes. Based on those Cyber 5 numbers alone, PayPal has a lot of tailwinds going for it. There's a lot going for PayPal as well over the next few years, especially with the shakeup in the SEC. Allows them to offer some different things. Of course, corporate taxes have lowered. That's big for every single stock. The only kind of danger thing for PayPal right now is if tariffs really do go up, that's going to stymie some of that cross-border payment system that they have. And so that's just kind of something to keep an eye on. If they're like 10% tariffs, that's probably not the biggest deal in the world. But, if you see like 50% tariffs, that's not great for PayPal. I'll say it how it is. Appreciate you, Jack. Lisa. Yes, we're going to actually get to this. Why don't I actually pull that up right now? Give me one moment. Here it is. Okay. So PayPal did increase its price for merchants. This is actually news from a few days ago. It just wasn't on X very much. Well, that's kind of hard to see. This is from December 6th, and it's basically they found it in the selling agreement. And so there are certain fees that are going up for PayPal. And of course, PayPal makes money this way. So this is good for PayPal as long as they don't lose, too much volume as a result of this. And so they even said, and I got this as well because I use PayPal to sell some stuff too here and there. There's no action needed from you today, but if you want to learn more, here it is. And so one of the more interesting parts of this is the PayPal Pay Later option. So PayPal Pay Later, their buy now, pay later, they're paying for doesn't cost the consumer anything, but PayPal business accounts, when acting as sellers, will be charged a standard domestic rate of 4.99%. Now, a usual PayPal transaction is like 3.49%. And so this is actually a higher margin service now. Buy now, pay later is one of those things that's growing really rapidly, not just for PayPal, but other vendors as well. It's one of those actual metrics that Alex Chris shouted out as well. Alternative payment methods are up just a little bit. Advanced credit cards and debit are up just a tad as well. And virtual terminal is up just slightly as well. So just some tweaks. I thought the most interesting was that 5% for buy now, pay later. So we'll see how that impacts them, for quarter 4 and beyond. Yeah, PayPal Credit's a good credit card. I actually don't have that one. I was gearing up to get it. Ended up getting the Robinhood card. Just 3% everything cash back is phenomenal. But yeah, the PayPal credit card, I think, is probably second best. And in some ways, in that number one category, you get up to 5% cash back. It stacks with your other PayPal rewards. It can actually be better with certain transactions than the Robinhood card. So did we ever come up with an explanation for why they've only added 1,000 Fastlane customers so far? That is something. I think it was 10,000, not 1,000. I'd have to go back. Maybe you're right. It might have been 1,000. This was, of course, they launched Fastlane in August, and so I think that they added a lot of larger customers. I'm guessing that a lot of those were, on the large side, and they went out to the PayPal Developer Conference. It can take 2 to 3 weeks for them to be able to onboard, and they launched this in August, and of course, they just hadn't had a lot of time to scale it. I'm not too concerned at this point, but if 1,000 is accurate, and that might have been the number, I'd have to double check that. If it's like 3,000 in January when they do their quarter 4 results, yeah, that doesn't look good at all. So I would love an explanation on that as well. But I just say give it one more quarter just for another data point, since it's so new at this point. They did announce. Well, we'll get to Fastlane here in just a moment. PayPal debit's a little confusing. Yeah, I mean, on the website, they kind of break down. It's not quite as good as the 3% everything Robinhood card, but it's still a good card. Roy, I don't even carry credit cards with me anymore. Everything is tap to pay, so much easier and secure. Yeah, I mean, that's what I use for Google Pay. It's through PayPal. I got tap to pay as well. It's using PayPal. It's nice that, they kind of had to do that, but it's nice that Apple opened up the NFC chip. And of course, you're able to access your PayPal balance through that as well. Can you go over a bit more on details why Trump's tariffs are bad for PayPal? Do you think that they're worse for PayPal than for other fintechs? Yeah, that's a good question. So tariffs themselves, if there are tariffs and all of a sudden you as a consumer are paying 50% more for something over China, you're probably just not going to buy that. Or maybe you'll look for something domestically. That's kind of the design for tariffs. I personally I'm not a big fan of tariffs at all. I don't think that they end up working well. But so PayPal makes the highest margins out of any of their products from cross-border. And so even if you're using PayPal, let's say you, instead of buying something from China, you buy it from the United States, just using PayPal, they make 3% and change. Versus China, because of the cross-border fees, it's actually quite a bit more for PayPal themselves. So it's not like the most bearish thing, but the bigger risk too is that it hikes up a trade war. And so as a result, China, Canada, Mexico, other countries as well begin their own tariffs. And that really slows global trade by quite a bit. And since PayPal is a global player, as a result, it hurts them, it hurts economies. It's just not a great thing. Yeah, 20% off groceries by combining cashback discounts in the app. Yeah, Instant Cart doesn't always have it, but like they have crazy 15% discounts by checking out with the PayPal app. So it's pretty insane. Yeah, EU, thank you for leading the way on that. Pay with PayPal was up 30% in Cyber 5. Yes, that was another note that Alex Chris had mentioned. They had a really, really good Cyber 5. And as a result, when that news actually posted, the stock roared into the 90s. Of course, it settled at 89 today. but it's still looking good. It's still in an uptrend, even though it's not up overall that much at this point. All right, so let's look at the next segment then. So Jamie Miller went on with UBS. This was last week, I believe, last Wednesday, when I was traveling, of course, so I couldn't cover it live. But had some really interesting comments, and so I wanted to look at some of those. So the first thing is something that's actually a little bit bearish. When I cover PayPal, guys, I'm always going to shoot you straight. If I'm like, hey, I don't like this, I'm not particularly excited, I'll just say that, even though I'm very bullish on PayPal. So Jamie Miller mentioned when she was asked about Fastlane, they were asking about pricing. So they had mentioned when Fastlane launched in August that they would not be charging for the additional use of the service. PayPal still makes money just because if there is higher checkouts, some of that percentage is going to go PayPal's way as people use PayPal or Braintree or Venmo, but they don't make a lot off of it. So they said later they would be pricing the value for Fastlane, possibly as another value-added service product, perhaps a set percent or two that would just be, pure money for PayPal. But they talked about the need to scale it first. And so this was a comment that I wasn't particularly excited about, but I understand where they're coming from. So Jamie Miller said, yes, so we brought this in. We do have a pricing construct that is in the contracts, but I'll start with where I ended on your last question, which is where we really focus right now on scale and distribution. So getting this set up with merchants, getting this up with a distribution channel, if you will, and getting it scaled in 25. That's their main priorities as they're trying to scale this. There's tremendous network effects, by the way, and this product, unlike most PayPal products, is a winner take most. If they have the best-in-class guest checkout, which I think they do, and they have a whole lot of people onboarded from that, and a whole lot of merchants as well, they get more individual consumers signing up, and they also get more merchants, and it's just a feedback loop, and in a positive sense. And so she says, so we haven't turned pricing on yet, and we don't expect to. This is for Fastlane, probably for much of 2025. Absolutely, when you get into conversations, it is bundled in different ways in some cases with some of the big players that we may be co-partnering with. It's more of a revenue sharing arrangement. In other cases, it's actually priced individually per total payment volume that flows through it. Bottom line is that's what they're doing. 2025, don't count on a lot added from Fastlane. And so short term, that's like not the most amazing news ever. But as long as they're able to scale Fastlane, that's something to keep an eye on with those 1,000 onboarded merchants. If it's only like 2,000 or 3,000 next quarter, I got some questions, but we'll see how they scale. Now, Jamie Miller, those aren't the only comments that she made. She made some comments as well on quarter four. And she said, for the quarter, I would say we're very comfortable with the guidance we gave. I feel really good about that. And the last little bit that I thought was interesting, beyond quarter four likely coming above guidance, because that's what they do with PayPal, is this bit on mobile and, of course, a new integration. I think it was a comment at the very beginning. Yes, right here from Johnny. I'm excited PayPal app is getting better. As a consumer, that's great. For merchants and those that are using PayPal, it's very, very good as well. And specifically, Jamie Miller was asked about this integration. So, they roll out different versions, they improve the tech, and they roll it out to merchants. And merchants don't have to jump over. They don't force that. And so she was asked how many merchants from the United States actually have PayPal with the newest, most modern integration. It's only 5% right now. But the reason why it's important that they switch over, and PayPal has built a compelling case, is it gives a 400 basis points of uplift in conversion. In other words, if somebody is coming over and wanting to buy something, that when they click on your page, it's only a few percent that actually end up purchasing something, and having an extra 4% of transactions as a result is really phenomenal. And what's really interesting is Jamie mentioned that it performs better on mobile than desktop. So this is from Adobe Analytics. It's some of their Black Friday, Cyber Monday numbers that I found. And you can see here, desktop is in blue, mobile is in purple. And the conversion rate keeps going up over time and over the years, but it's always higher for desktop than mobile. PayPal all of a sudden has a product that not only improves conversion, but helps out mobile. And the reason why this is really important, you can see the mobile revenue share during the holiday season from 2022 through 2024, just so far. We can see it was below 50% for those using their phones to be able to buy stuff versus their PC. 2023 was the first time it was over 50%, just barely, and it's continued to grow in 2024. So, retailers, merchants, and people like PayPal as well are looking for products that give more lift specifically for mobile because, again, it just lags in conversion for the desktop. So they want as much as that as possible, especially as that segment is growing. So that was some really, really good insights from Jamie Miller. The stock, of course, pumps whenever she goes on one of these because she's full of great numbers and insights. People ask her questions, and she's just like, "Oh yeah, of course. Here's some information straight up." They know that it's just not a lot of baloney. All right, so pay with Venmo. Yes, Venmo, like every single one of their product categories for Cyber 5 did well. We saw that in quarter three as well. Braintree was the only one that was kind of lagging just because of that price to value that they're doing. But this, you've heard of the saying, death by a thousand paper cuts. This is like the opposite for PayPal. They have a whole lot of products like Venmo, like PayPal's app, like Fastlane, like advertising that we're going to talk about next that are just doing very, very well or just beginning. PayPal Complete Payments, international partnerships, agreements with Shopify, agreements with Adyen. It just on and on and on. Buybacks, of course, and of course, efficiency that they're doing. AI. We're going to talk a little bit about AI and Alex Chris's comments there. All these are just like little things, or most of them are like little things. That you're like, oh, it's not a big deal. Raising these rates a little bit. But if you have enough of them, and like 90 something percent are going well and growing, you have a phenomenal impact for your business. And so that's been something that's really interesting. So, with all the new initiatives, which do you think will be the biggest? Ads everywhere, Venmo, ads. It's probably going to be advertisements. Let me show you guys this. So, advertising platform launched officially in late November. They had talked about launching it in 2025. They brought over Dr. Mark Grather, who was the architect behind Uber's advertising business, which reached a $1 billion annual run rate, rather, in quarter three. He was also involved in launching Amazon's advertising business when many people were questioning whether that could actually be legitimate. And so, with some of the hires that he's made, he's like, hey, we can launch this early, actually in time for the holidays. And so they began compiling data very late in November. They offer, advanced offers, smart receipts. I'm not going to go too much in the advertising side of it. I have a video. I won't link it here, but that I did. That's like 10 or 12 minutes on the advertising platform if you're interested. But what I do want us to look at is this right here. This is retail media. And so there's a lot more players in this. I mean, like even Dollar General at this point has a media arm, and they have a lot of data that people want to have. But you can see it's really dominated by Amazon right there, who is huge. Walmart is certainly big. Walmart actually entered the space. It was one of the earlier adopters. They've done very, very well. Target, Instacart, eBay, Etsy. We could name quite a few others. So this is a place where I think that they're going to make a lot of money. And the biggest thing is advertising is a very, very high margin product. Now, if you remember back to last year, one of the biggest bear arguments was that PayPal had very low margins that were continuing to get less and less and less. This is one of those products that reverses that. Advertising vendors are starved for more data and more reaching more users as well. And PayPal has double-sided data. They know, what the merchants are doing on that side. They know what consumers are doing. So there's this article that came out when they initially launched this platform. They said PayPal knows your pant size and knows how to use it, something like that. They know that level of details, which is something that many of these vendors don't actually know. They don't have the aggregation of that data. And so it's a little bit different than all these offerings, but Uber actually entered that $1 billion annual run rate in 2 years. In 2 years. And the same person is running PayPal's platform. I think that it's It's different because the PayPal wallet, it's not a natural place for advertising, but the smart receipts, the advance offers make absolute sense. And I think that they can get to this run rate of $1 billion within 2 to 3 years. In the short term, we won't see any of it probably for quarter 4, at least not much of it, but we can certainly see a whole lot of it beginning late next year, of course, throughout the year as well. And I'm very curious what they actually guide for it. But yeah, that's the one that I would say I'm most bullish on and most excited about, just because they already have these mounds of data that they just have not used effectively. And all of a sudden, they're offering it so that small and mid-sized businesses have an effective way to advertise. And it doesn't really cost the business anything. They only pay for any actual sales that occur. So it's very little risk. It's going to scale really fast. Let's see. What else do we have for comments? I appreciate that. I'm glad that I could be of service. Heard Klarna hasn't hired in a year and are doing more with 22% less employees by using AI. AI is the next piece we're actually talking about. So good timing on that, Daniel. Yeah, PayPal has a lot more that they can do with AI, especially from the efficiency standpoint. It's easy to overdo it as well. I think that this will be the third January, late in January, probably after their quarter 4 earnings call, that they'll probably do another reduction in their headcount. A lot of employees are anticipating that as well. I never get excited about layoffs just because that's happened to me before. And I know from personal experience, it's not fun. So I don't wish anyone to lose their job. But yeah, realistically, PayPal absolutely is still a bit bloated, and probably for the next few years will continue to need to tighten and hone down their staff. Ads will be huge, absolutely, and haven't received a smart receipt yet. Is it active or part of the new ad business? It is active with certain merchants. They're scaling it out. So I think really next year we'll begin to see that quite a bit. I want us to look at Alex Chris's comments on AI, and we'll talk a little bit about the impact that this can have on PayPal. Alex has been talking about AI, I think, since 2018. He had an article that he wrote on this. So this is not hey, let me just mention AI a bunch of times to pump the stock. Alex isn't that type of guy at all. This is a 1 minute and 30-second clip from his longer interview with Fortune magazine that occurred this month. Please let me know if you can hear or if you can't hear in the comments. All right, let me see how I can get that sound on. It's on this end, so maybe I can just put this microphone super close. I don't know if that's going to work, but let me try that. All right. Well, I apologize. I'll have to just figure that one out later. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. But yeah, Alex Chris went on an interview. Part of what he was talked about was efficiency and AI, and what they're actually able to do for small businesses, both from an AI perspective. They have John Kim as their chief products officer. Originally came over before Alex Chris from Expedia. Phenomenal guy, also very geared for AI, but also from an efficiency standpoint. Jamie Miller was asked about this as well, and she didn't give any numbers as far as like layoffs or anything. That wouldn't be appropriate here. But they've talked about that there's a lot more to gain from implementing AI for things like customer service. You still want some people in the loop, but with machine learning, with large language models, with AI, you can actually solve a lot of the simpler requests that people have. And also a lot of the regulatory stuff on the backside as well. And so AI is able to not like replace everybody, but a certain amount of people uh, are able to do a lot more with AI tools than just hiring extra bodies. And so I don't think PayPal is going to drop down to like 20,000 employees the next year. That would actually shock me, and not necessarily in a good way. But having a similar layoff or cut as they had the last couple of years wouldn't be shocking. A few thousand people, and then just really focused hiring, being very selective on who they actually need to bring in and why. And they're hiring people all the time. But yeah, it's an interesting article. I'm going to actually put that here in the comments, just in case you guys want to watch that later, or if somebody is watching this recorded afterwards. All right, so talking about AI, what an incredible earnings and even more so guidance from AVGO. Yeah, Broadcom gave that today after close. I saw the stock. I didn't follow the actual action. I know a lot of people were saying it was way too oversold. It had gone down for a while. Let me pull. Well, I won't pull that up. We're on the PayPal monthly. So, but yeah, AI is real. If you don't believe it, I don't know what to say to you. But Uber does 9 billion transactions a year. PayPal does 26 billion. So without Venmo, etc., PayPal should 3x Uber's ad business in a year or two or sooner with 3 billion in revenue. I have to disagree. I mean, it's possible, and it's possible that I'm a little bit too conservative with the advertising business. The reason why I think that it won't accelerate to that extent is the ad business is housed natively, or at least part of it, within Uber's platform itself, and people are used to using that app. I mean, you have to use it with everything that you do with Uber, and so you bring that up, like with Uber Eats, and all of a sudden you have that advertisement right there based on who you ordered from, who's in the area, what merchants are offering what, and your own patterns as well. And so that's whenever you open that app up, it demonstrates intent. Not necessarily so with PayPal. I still think that they're going to get to about that same size, the 1 billion amount, within a couple of years, 2 to 3 years. Which, I mean, their free cash flow is they're guiding now up to $6 billion, and most of that, just because of the way the margins are structured, most of that's just going to go right into the bottom line with free cash flow. So going from 6 to not quite $7 billion of free cash flow just from this one product, that's pretty good. And we don't know what they'll do as far as buybacks. I actually think that here in the next year and a half or so, they're actually going to start offering a dividend. I don't own any dividend stocks. It's not like the most exciting thing for me, but it'll reach a new segment of customers. Maybe when buybacks make a little bit less sense, when it's trading at like $150 a share versus the $50 a share of last year. We'll have to see. So a couple of more miscellaneous notes on PayPal as well. So we did the fee change. They're using PayUSD, by the way, now to settle transactions on Zoom. This is, of course, their stablecoin. It helps with PayPal margins. There were several other people, including Robinhood, that collaborated on another stablecoin. Stablecoins are all over the news, and so PayPal has the early lead here. They're able to use it across Zoom to actually redeem that business and have much, much more controlled margins. And I'm hoping that they'll actually scale that out to other parts of their business next year. If so, all of a sudden their margins just balloon. But it was big news that they went from just being able to use a stablecoin to actually settling Zoom payments through PayUSD, not using somebody else's rails, but their own digital rails as well. Now, one more or a couple more things here. End up stopping sharing my screen. So one of the other bear arguments that was occurring was that they were losing market share. This was one of those big things back in 2022 before I was in the company in stock, and in 2023 as well. It's not been mentioned quite as much. And this fellow right here had a very good chart, I thought. And so he's comparing, of course, Adyen, Block, etc., to PayPal. And you can see U.S. e-commerce sales year over year are growing at this rate right here. So not just a little bit under 8%. And PayPal's total payment volume is growing at a slightly higher rate. What does that mean? It means they're not losing market share. The only time that was not true is very briefly in fourth quarter of 2022. Actually, no, third quarter in 2022, it was right below. Fourth quarter, it was slightly above. So it'll be interesting to see if that continues. Of course, with them pulling back a little bit from Braintree just for those higher margins, that may not be the case for all of next year. It wouldn't actually shock me if they actually are under U.S. e-commerce, especially given the growth that e-commerce had this year, but we'll have to see. Another note on the total payment volume is this right here. There's a couple of things that have happened that have been very interesting this month. This was something that I found earlier in the week, so December 11th, but it was December 9th when it was posted. Epic Games had a lawsuit. You'd be like, okay, well, what does this have to do with PayPal? PayPal is often selected as the only choice if you don't want a physical check in lawsuits. And here, Epic Games had a began sending out not just 72 million. It was, I believe, 200 something million over different installments. And so they mentioned to their customers, like, hey, you can accept a check. If so, you're getting your money in 3 months. If you want a PayPal payment, you're getting it within 30 days. And so about half of the people, they said, so far, at least in this allotment, had selected PayPal. I also saw this as well with a settlement with Credit Karma. They had also offered only PayPal or a physical check, which was much slower. I imagine it's about the same. I've seen this from time to time. And related, this was news, I think, just after we did our PayPal monthly last month. Detroit to accept cryptocurrency for taxes and fees through who? Oh, yeah, it's PayPal. Cryptocurrency payments, of course, are becoming more popularized for government institutions and businesses as well. PayPal will be running some of those just because they're a trusted name, especially working with regulators and government. And so these are all things that I think will add to total payment volume. We'll have to actually see how they do. Let's look at the comments again here. We're about to go under 1 billion shares outstanding. Yeah, the question is if we do that in quarter 4 or not. I don't know. We might be able to do that. If not, it's going to be quarter 1 next year. It's really exciting to see that the share count actually run backwards. Let me pull that up with visual stocks here. And the buyback program does go through next year as well. So revenue segments, well, let me throw this up on the screen. Shares outstanding. Here we go. So there's the shares outstanding, and it's a little bit over a billion, 1.024 billion, versus back in 2019, 1.174 billion. And so, close to 17% of the float from that time has been eliminated, which is pretty fantastic. I like it when a stock goes backwards. Makes it a lot easier to hit those EPS because there's a lot fewer shares as a result. And also to reach that all-time high that they had back during COVID, it's a lot easier now because their market cap is their share count is 17% lower. I'm surprised PayPal doesn't offer a cybersecurity platform. Yeah, it's not really their bread and butter. They would probably have to hire quite a few people to do that. They do offer fraud protection as a service and a couple other things that are other value-added services that they're able to use. But we'll have to see what other products that they offer over time. PayPal is an investor in Paxos, who is making a stablecoin for Robinhood. That's a good point. Yeah, PayPal Ventures is invested in a lot of startups. They make money for PayPal as well. Yeah, that's one of their investments. Also, their partner for their own stablecoin. PayPal Enterprises, PayPal Ventures, is invested big in Mercado Libre. I believe it was to the tune of around $5 billion. Melli has gone down a little bit just because there's some geopolitical risk. But yeah, that's been a good investment for PayPal. They've held it for a little while. I don't think that they're planning to get rid of it anytime soon. A bit of a speculative question. Do you think PayPal can get back to their all-time highs? What would it take to get there, and how likely, in your opinion, over the next 5 years? All right, let's pull up another chart just so you can see how far off we are from this. All right. So here is the chart, and all-time high is right there, 308. We are down 71% from that, and to go, up to 308, it's going to take some time. Some people think, oh, this is going to be, and I saw this last year too, that this is the next Meta. There are some similarities, but it's not a tech company. They don't print money like Meta. I don't love that company, but this is going to be more of a well, you can see like the gradual climb up, not so gradual now. It's up 40 something percent, close to 50% actually year to date. We'll pull that up here. 45.46% year to date. Probably finished close to 50% year to date. Would not shock me if it keeps doing this for several years. Next year, I'm thinking that we're going to be around $150 to $160. So that's actually better than 50%. And I actually I lean towards 150 just because we won't see a lot extra from Fastlane, and they are doing this rebalancing with Braintree as well. But with the advertising product actually beginning to make a meaningful improvement with PayPal Complete Payments rolling out and all those other things that we're talking about, they're going to continue to grow their overall volume. Their margins are improving. Their product offering is improving. People aren't sleeping on this anymore. Even their competition is partnering with PayPal. PayPal is far from dead. But I think that we'll need to see continued execution on a lot of those fronts. So if advertising business is anywhere where I expect it to be, that's going to be a meaningful contributor towards the second half of this next year. And then really 2026 is really when it begins to ramp up, I think, eventually by the end of the year to that $1 billion run rate. So they'll have, like, in other words, $250 million in a single quarter, maybe a little bit higher. We need to see PayPal continue to do well overseas. That's been one of the things that's been a challenge for PayPal is a lot of places throughout the globe are just not doing quite as well. Europe has gone through a lot of hard times, some of their own making. And of course, their currencies slide relative to the dollar. So I don't think PayPal necessarily needs those areas to like just become phenomenal. But it would be nice if the dollar was more neutral and not a drag on PayPal. And they need tariffs to not go up. If tariffs and a massive trade war is kicked off, all-time highs, I think, are still inevitable, but it'll take a while to play out. It might be longer than 5 years. Alex Chris needs to continue to stay there and help the company be very efficient. And so this isn't just a top-line growth play, but that was Dan Schulman's PayPal. Dan Schulman is like, hey, let's grow active users at any cost. Let's grow revenue at any cost, whether we make money, whether it makes sense or not. That's a terrible long-term strategy. It just is. And so under Alex Chris, they're trying to drive and grow profitable margin growth. They talk about that. They bang the table on that. They're doing very well, but this is just the beginning of this story. I think most people that are not PayPal shareholders, and probably even most of you guys, are like, all-time highs though. Like, really, that's such a long journey to over $300, and it is. But I think over time they'll continue to get there, and people realize like, hey, PayPal is not dead. E-commerce is growing, and PayPal is still a leader there. They're actually innovating. Shares outstanding chart is beautiful. Yes. Last question. In retrospect, there was lots of talk last year how parting from Amazon would hurt PayPal. Do you think it did? Do we know more on this? Yes, that's actually one of those things I thought about sharing. Let me see if I can find this right quick. Amazon ended up partnering actually with PayPal again. So Venmo specifically was removed from Amazon late last year, is after the holiday season, and people are like, oh, it's over. Well, we didn't know exactly why it was removed. We still didn't get clarification. My thought is it might have been that both parties said, hey, maybe this isn't working out. There is a little bit higher fraud rate under Venmo for whatever reason, just like there is with Zelle, just like there is with Cash App. And so that could have been one of the concerns for Amazon. And the other is from PayPal's standpoint, Alex Chris talked about having these conversations and removing certain features from places where it was just like a negative growth driver. Like if, for instance, they said, hey, Amazon, you can use Venmo. It won't cost you anything at all. It's like 0% fee. Somebody's got to pay that price. And so PayPal would be losing money. And so, but instead, PayPal is now offered again on Amazon. So I don't think it hurt them. We look at the numbers like quarter four was phenomenal, but that was kind of new. Quarter one was really, really good. Quarter two was really, really good. And these are all times when Venmo was removed. Quarter three, not quite as good, still very good though. Came in the middle. What's your projected EPS for quarter four? Way more than 111, please. I'll just be honest. I haven't done that yet. I need to do that calculation. I usually do that when we get, within a month or so of earnings. So probably won't be on my focus until right after the new year. Maybe the first week in January. So yeah, I'm not even going to take a stab and guess at it, but based on their Black Friday, Cyber Monday numbers, I think it's going to be higher. They tend to be a little bit conservative, especially on EPS. And so it would not shock me if it's higher by a fair bit. They actually normally understate that by a fair bit. Doug, thank you for tuning in. And I'm better looking than Tanner. Don't know about that, but I appreciate the comments. Any other questions, guys? I think we're going to wrap this up here in the next minute or two. And while I'm waiting for questions, this is something that I think that I will keep on a monthly basis. PayPal does have some weeks where they have just an insane amount of news, but a lot of times it's just little thing after little thing that all stack up for that long-term thesis. I'll continue to, of course, publish videos in the meantime, but I think towards the end, before we get to Q4 earnings at the end of January, we'll do another PayPal monthly. We'll do this maybe like once a month or so, and I'll try to get the word out a little bit earlier than 1 hour before. Deregulation should really help PayPal and PayUSD. Yeah, I think that. So as a whole, fintech has been in a bear market for most of this year. It's really been the last few months where a lot of fintech, outside of select names like Robinhood, which of course you guys know I'm in and I love, a lot of fintech has been struggling. Like SoFi is one of those examples. And so deregulation and having somebody not named Gary Gensler in the SEC is very, very big for a lot of names. And so PayPal is one of those winners in the space. Why does PayUSD bop and drop like $50 million a day? They have some mega people that hold a lot of PayUSD in their wallet. And sometimes they realize like, hey, we have a little bit too much. We want to redeem that for something else. It goes up the other way as new people adopt PayUSD. It's sitting around not quite $600 million in their entire market cap. But yeah, I'd like to see a little bit more PayUSD news. I'm actually hoping to possibly interview Jose Fernandez de Ponte, the architect behind PayUSD, maybe sometime in the next few months. Appreciate you tuning in. Options going well. Yeah, the PayPal options as well. Like if you're doing options, guys, on PayPal or any other name, I don't recommend doing like as far out in the money and like 3 months out. PayPal's not that kind of stock where it's going to rocket, like 20% in a day. It's not Tesla. But over time, I think it's going to continue to march steadily on. There will be times when it shoots up, especially at earnings or some other big news. But largely, this is a slow and steady march back up to the all-time high in about 5 years. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Appreciate you. And thank you all for your support too. Maybe PayPal will go heavy into crypto with the new administration. Yeah, I mean, that's something that they really stopped emphasizing, I think, because of Gary Gensler. If you remember, Robinhood, which is more associated with crypto, actually removed cryptocurrencies from their platform in 2022. They removed some big ones. Solana and Cardano are the most prevalent, XRP as well. They re-added almost immediately after the election, and I think they'll continue to do that. It's a question of whether PayPal will or not. I think that they're pretty free to do that. Whether they see a benefit to do that with the PayPal platform, with Venmo, they probably should, to be honest. But we'll have to see what they actually do. Next live on my channel, that will be SoFi Weekly tomorrow. 2-year strikes, $100, only costs 20. Exactly. I'm actually probably going to buy more here in the next week or two on those as well. Yeah, PayPal Investor Day is going to get things moving with the stock. I agree. That's going to be very big. FinTech Frenzy is the next one, and I appreciate you. On that note, guys, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate all your support. I'm officially monetized. It's a great thing. It only took about a month and a half. And it's just because of you guys. You guys have been incredible with your support and your encouragement. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. And as always, happy investing.